The boarding announcement echoed through Terminal C, but I was already turning my Mercedes around in the long-term lot, tires squealing against concrete. Seattle could wait. My sister's cabin on Lake Chelan could wait. What I'd forgotten, what I needed, was the original deed to the Bellingham property tucked in my father's mahogany desk. The copy wouldn't do, not for what Victor had planned. I had no idea that forgetting that document would save my life. The house on Magnolia Boulevard stood silent in the afternoon light. I'd lived here 42 years, raised a son within these walls, buried a husband from these steps. The hydrangeas Victor planted at 8 years old still bloomed purple every June, now wild and untended since Richard's funeral. My key turned soundlessly in the lock. I didn't call out. Something in the air felt wrong, charged like the moment before lightning splits the sky. The voices drifted from Richard's study. Low, calculating. I recognized the first voice immediately. My son's baritone, the same voice that once begged for bedtime stories about brave knights and distant mountains. Now it discussed me like I was a case file. "The cognitive assessment is scheduled for Wednesday," Victor said. "Dr. Patterson owes me. The report will show what we need." "And if she resists?" A woman's voice. Crisp, professional, cold. "She won't. Mom barely remembers her own address half the time. The conservatorship filing is already drafted, Diane. We just need medical documentation." Diane. Victor's attorney girlfriend, the one who smiled at Richard's funeral while calculating billable hours. "The Bellingham property alone is worth $2.3 million, she continued. Plus, the investment portfolio, the mineral rights from her father's surveying business. I know the numbers." Victor's voice had an edge now. "I've been managing everything since Dad died anyway. This just makes it official." My legs forgot how to move. The woman who taught her son to read, who worked double shifts at the King County Archives to pay for his Stanford education, that woman was being erased line by line, asset by asset. I backed away, my hip grazing the antique table in the hall. The decorative bowl rattled once. The voices stopped. I moved faster than I had in years, out the door, down the steps, into my car. My hands shook so violently I could barely fit the key in the ignition. In the rearview mirror, I saw the curtain in Richard's study move. Victor's face appeared in the window. Our eyes met for 3 seconds that stretched into eternity. Then he smiled, that same reassuring smile he'd used on me for months, and waved. He thought I hadn't heard. He thought I was just confused, just his forgetful mother making another unplanned trip home. He had no idea what he'd just set in motion. I drove without destination, my mind cataloguing, archiving, doing what I'd trained it to do for 40 years at the King County Archives. When had it started? When did my brilliant, curious son become this stranger? The memories came in fragments. Victor insisting on helping with Richard's estate paperwork. Victor suggesting I was too stressed to handle the investment accounts. Victor changing the locks, for my safety after I supposedly left the stove on. Except I hadn't. I never did. I was certain. The puzzle pieces rotated, clicked into place. The new financial advisor I'd never chosen. The property tax bills I'd never seen. The misplaced checkbook that appeared emptied of $3,000. My neurologist appointment that was cancelled and rescheduled without my knowledge. I'd been so tired after Richard died, so willing to let Victor help, so grateful not to be alone. He'd counted on that. By the time I stopped driving, I was parked outside the King County Archives building on 4th Avenue. Concrete and glass, brutalist and beautiful, holding centuries of documents, deeds, maps, and histories. I'd spent 23 years in the basement levels, cataloguing the uncatalogable, finding patterns in chaos. The security guard waved me through. "Miss Catherine!" Long time. And I rode the elevator down to level B2. I found Richard's file within minutes. Not the simplified version Victor had shown me. Not the summary Diane had probably prepared. The original in Richard's precise cartographer's hand, with all his annotations, addendums, and protective clauses. My breath caught as I read the highlighted section. In the event of my death, all assets, properties, and investments shall remain solely under Catherine's control. No transfers, sales, or financial decisions regarding these assets may be made without her direct, notarized consent. Victor Millbrook, son, is not designated as power of attorney, executor, or financial proxy under any circumstances until Catherine's death or voluntary witness transfer of authority, which must be confirmed by 2 independent medical evaluations, not one, and not by any physician financially connected to Victor or any associate thereof. Richard had known. Not the specifics, maybe, but he'd known enough to protect me. At the bottom of the page, a sticky note in his handwriting. Kath, if you're reading this without me here, trust yourself. The numbers don't lie. Your mind is sharper than you believe. -R. I photographed every single page, uploaded them to 3 separate cloud accounts, sent copies to my email. Then I made a list. New attorney. Untraceable to Victor. Independent medical evaluation. My choice of doctor. Full audit of all accounts. Document everything. When I left the archives, the city lights reflected off wet pavement like scattered stars. And for the first time since Richard's funeral, I felt the fog in my mind clearing. Victor thought he was hunting someone weak, confused, easy prey. He had no idea he'd just awakened the archivist. I woke before dawn and began my performance. The small recording device fit perfectly in my cardigan pocket, barely larger than a tube of lipstick left over from Richard's surveying days. The red recording light blinked once, then vanished behind grey wool. I moved through the house, creating careful chaos. A teacup in the bathroom, yesterday's newspaper on the breakfast table, my reading glasses in the refrigerator, the pill organizer deliberately mixed up, the calendar with yesterday's dates circled in red. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror and barely recognized myself. Hair uncombed, blouse buttoned wrong, slippers mismatched. I looked exactly like what Victor was trying to prove. At 10:15, his BMW pulled into the driveway. I let him knock 3 times before I shuffled to the door. Mom. He embraced me carefully. I brought groceries. Have you eaten today? I blinked at him slowly. Victor? I wasn't. Did we have plans? He moved past me into the kitchen, already assuming control. The house is cold. Did you forget the thermostat again? Did I? I touched my forehead vaguely. I thought, maybe I did adjust it. Or was that yesterday? While he unpacked groceries, I sat at the kitchen table, letting my hands rest unsteadily on the surface. The recorder in my pocket caught every word. I talked to Dr. Patterson, he said. He has an opening this Wednesday for that evaluation we discussed. Just routine, to make sure everything's okay. Dr. Patterson owes me. An evaluation? I made my voice small, confused. I don't... What kind? Just memory and cognition, nothing scary. Victor turned and I saw the calculation in his eyes. You know, Mom, I've been thinking. That assisted living community I showed you, Arbor Heights, they have a unit available. Garden View, 24-hour nursing staff. I don't know, I said slowly. This house? Your father built that deck. I know. He sat across from me, taking my hands. His grip was firm, possessive, not comforting. But Dad wouldn't want you struggling alone. That's why we need to make some decisions. I've already talked to Diane and she's drawn up some paperwork. Just temporary. Just until you're feeling better. It would give me the ability to help manage things. The bills, the property taxes, the investments. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, I glimpsed the words conservatorship petition and cognitive impairment. That sounds complicated, I whispered. It's not. Just a signature. You trust me, right? He leaned forward. I'm your son. I only want what's best for you. I looked down at the folder, let my finger trace the edge, then I met his eyes directly. Just for a second, just long enough for something to pass between us. Then I let my gaze go vague again. I need to think about it. My head is tired. He stayed another 40 minutes, walking through the house, documenting things with his phone camera, the misplaced glasses, the confused calendar, the pill organizer, building his case. When he finally left, I removed the recorder. My hands didn't shake as I uploaded the file. I labeled it Evidence 01, the performance. I found Leona Reeves's name in my ancient address book. We'd worked together at the archives for 17 years before she left to attend law school at 45. She'd built a reputation for taking cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. I called from a payphone. Leona, it's Catherine Milbrook. I need help. The kind you don't discuss over phone lines. Are you safe? For now. I'll be there in 2 hours. Leona arrived with a leather briefcase and the same intense focus in her dark eyes. I told her everything. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, I placed the recorder on the table, along with printed copies of Richard's original will and a timeline I'd constructed of every suspicious event. She listened to the recording in its entirety. When Victor's voice said, "Dr. Patterson owes me," her jaw tightened. The recording ended. Silence filled the kitchen. "How fast can you move?" I asked. "How fast do you need me to?" "He has me scheduled for an evaluation with a compromised doctor in 4 days." Leona's fingers flew across her laptop. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we file a preemptive medical evaluation with an independent neurologist. Second, we draft an emergency revocation of any informal authority. Third, we prepare a cease and desist. Fourth," she looked up at me, "fourth, we make it very clear that if Victor wants to play in court, we'll bring every recording into public record. Elder financial abuse carries criminal penalties in Washington state." "He's my son," I said quietly. "I know." Leona's voice was gentle but firm. "And if he were acting like a son, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Over the next 3 hours, we built a fortress. Leona made phone calls to Dr. Sarah Chen, a neurologist with no connection to Victor's circles, to a forensic accountant, to a tech specialist. By the time she left, I had appointments scheduled, documents drafted, and a safety plan. At the door, Leona paused. "Catherine, that recording device? Keep it running. Every conversation, every visit. We need a pattern, not an incident." After she left, I stood in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not just hope, power. Dr. Sarah Chen's office occupied the top floor of a medical building in Fremont, no connection to Swedish Medical where Victor worked. She spent 3 hours with me, cognitive tests, memory assessments, neurological exams. When we finished, she sat across from me and folded her hands. "Ms. Milbrook, you're one of the sharpest 74-year-olds I've examined in 15 years. Your recall is excellent, your executive function is well above average, and you show 0 signs of cognitive decline. Frankly, I'd trust you to manage my finances." The relief hit me like a wave. She handed me a sealed envelope. "This is your official evaluation, signed and notarized. Guard it carefully." Her expression hardened. "I've seen what your son is attempting. It constitutes medical fraud and elder abuse." I drove home with the envelope triple-wrapped in plastic. That evening, I scanned every page and uploaded it to 5 different cloud services, emailed copies to Leona, printed 3 physical copies, 1 for my safe deposit box, 1 hidden in Richard's old surveying equipment, 1 mailed to my sister with instructions not to open unless I called with a specific code word. Victor called that evening. "Hey, Mom, just checking in. How was your day?" "Fine," I said vaguely. "I think I went somewhere. The grocery store, maybe?" "Did you remember the appointment tomorrow? Dr. Patterson's office at 10 a.m.? "Oh." I let confusion color my voice. "Tomorrow?" I thought. "Wasn't that next week?"
It's been so hard
"No,
since he
Mom.
left. I
Tomorrow,
miss him every day,
Wednesday.
and the memories
I'll pick
just
you up
keep
at
flooding me
9:30.
back.
If you think that's best." He hung up. I sat in the dark living room and realized something crystallized and cold. I wasn't nervous anymore. I was ready. Tomorrow, Victor would arrive expecting a confused, compliant mother. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. Wednesday morning broke grey and cold. I dressed carefully. Old cardigan, comfortable pants, worn slippers. The recorder went in my pocket. My phone, with Leona's number on speed dial, went in my purse. At 9:27, Victor's BMW turned into the driveway. "Ready, Mom." "For what?" A flash of satisfaction crossed his features. "The doctor's appointment, remember?" "Oh, yes, I think I looked around vaguely. "Should I bring something?" "Just yourself?" He guided me to the car like I was fragile. At the medical complex in Ballard, he helped me from the car, signed us in at the front desk. The receptionist looked at me with practiced sympathy. We sat in the waiting room. Victor checked his phone constantly. I picked up a magazine, looked at it upside down until Victor gently turned it right side up. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. Victor's impatience grew. Bouncing knee, checked watch, heavy sighs. Finally, the door opened. But it wasn't Dr. Patterson. It was Leona. Victor's face went blank. "Who are—" "Leona Reeves, attorney at law." She handed him a card. "Ms. Millbrook has asked me to be present for this evaluation. Victor looked at me. I kept my expression vague. "Mom, did you call a lawyer?" "Did I?" I blinked slowly. "I don't remember." "She called me yesterday," Leona said smoothly. She was quite clear about wanting legal representation. Before Victor could respond, another figure appeared. A woman in her 60s, professional attire, carrying a leather portfolio. "Hello, I'm Dr. Janet Morrison, court-appointed medical observer. I'm here to ensure this evaluation follows proper protocols." Victor's face drained of colour. "Court-appointed? There's no court involvement." "There is now," Leona said quietly. "Ms. Millbrook filed a protective order this morning. Dr. Patterson's evaluation will proceed, but it will be observed by an independent medical professional and recorded by a court stenographer." A stenographer appeared and set up in the corner without a word. Victor looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "Mom, what is this?" I let the confusion clear from my face, just for a moment, just long enough for him to see the sharpness return.
The memories just keep flooding
"I'm
me
protecting
back.
myself," I said clearly, "the way your father taught me to." Dr. Patterson's office smelled like old coffee and cheap air freshener. He was mid-40s, nervous eyes that kept darting to Dr. Morrison like a student caught cheating. His assessment was textbook, too textbook. Draw a clock. Name the president. Recall 3 words. But then his questions shifted. "Ms. Millbrook, has your son expressed concern about your ability to manage finances?" "Objection," Leona said immediately. "That's a leading question about third-party opinion, not cognitive state." Dr. Patterson flushed. "I'm trying to establish cognitive function through objective testing, doctor. Not hearsay." He recovered, tried again. "Do you ever feel confused about what day it is?" "No more than anyone else on a lazy Sunday," I said clearly. "Do you forget to take medications?" "I don't take any daily medications. Haven't for 3 years." His face tightened. "Your son mentioned you left the stove on—" "My son mentioned incorrectly," I said. "I have an induction cooktop that auto-shuts off. Impossible to leave it on. Installed last year specifically for safety." Dr. Patterson glanced at his notes, Victor's notes, and I could see him realizing they didn't match reality. Dr. Morrison leaned forward. "Dr. Patterson, have you performed a full neurological examination?" "I was planning to—" "Perhaps you should, for thoroughness." The examination concluded exactly what Dr. Chen's had. I was cognitively intact, neurologically sound, fully capable. Dr. Patterson signed the assessment with visible reluctance. Dr. Morrison added her notation. Evaluation observed. Patient shows no signs of cognitive impairment. Medical necessity for guardianship or conservatorship. None. In the waiting room, Victor stood abruptly. His eyes were wild. What did he say? Mom, what? He said I'm perfectly fine. I held the evaluation against my chest. Which I am, and have been, the entire time. Leona placed a hand on my shoulder. Mr. Millbrook, my client will not require a ride home. You'll be receiving formal notice of legal proceedings within 48 hours. Legal proceedings? For what? Elder financial abuse, medical fraud, attempted conservatorship fraud. Leona's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Oh, and my client has recordings, plural, time-stamped and backed up. Victor's face cycled through emotions, shock, anger, calculation, grief. Mom, he whispered, I'm your son. I know exactly who you are, I said quietly. That's the problem. The legal papers arrived at Victor's apartment on Friday morning via certified mail. Leona had been thorough, a formal complaint detailing attempted conservatorship fraud, medical coercion, financial manipulation, and elder abuse. Attached were transcripts of the recordings, statements from Dr. Chen and Dr. Morrison, and a forensic accounting report showing unauthorized transactions totaling $47,000 over 18 months. The accountant had found everything: the redirected dividends, the consulting fees paid to Diane's firm for services never rendered, the property tax overpayments that mysteriously ended up in an account Victor controlled. By Monday, Diane had withdrawn from Victor's life entirely. Professional liability, she'd said in a terse email Leona intercepted. The medical board had opened an inquiry into Dr. Patterson, and Victor's employer had placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. He called me Tuesday evening. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom, his voice was hollow. Can we talk? In person? Leona advises against it. Please, just please. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Wednesday afternoon, neutral location. A coffee shop in Ballard, public and safe. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled shirt, eyes rimmed with red. He sat across from me at a small table by the window, hands wrapped around a coffee cup he didn't drink. I'm sorry, he said finally. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I waited. I told myself I was helping, that you needed protecting, that I was doing what Dad would have wanted. He looked up at me, and I saw something genuine there, not the calculated concern, but real anguish. When did I stop seeing you as my mother and start seeing you as an obstacle? When you decided your needs mattered more than my autonomy, I said quietly. When you confused love with control. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. Because I'm not ready to offer it. He nodded, accepting that. We sat in silence for a long moment. The house, he said finally. The one on Magnolia. I have memories there. Good ones. You reading to me in the backyard. Dad teaching me to use his surveying equipment. I thought if I controlled everything, I could keep those memories safe, keep you safe, keep everything from changing. Life changes, Victor. People die, children grow up. That doesn't give you the right to lock me in amber. I know. His voice cracked. I know that now. I stood to leave. He didn't try to stop me. At the door, I turned back. Your father left you something in his will. Did you know that? Victor looked up, confused. His surveying equipment, his maps, his journals, everything he built his career on. I pulled out a small key from my purse and placed it on the table. It's in storage unit 247 at Ballard Self-Storage. He wanted you to have it, to remember who he was, who he taught you to be. I walked out into the grey Seattle afternoon, leaving my son with his cold coffee and a key to a past he'd almost destroyed our future to possess. 6 months later, I stood in the backyard of the Magnolia House, pruning the wild hydrangeas. They'd grown unruly, beautiful in their chaos, purple blooms heavy with spring rain. Leona's daughter Maya lived in the guest house now, a law student studying elder advocacy, paying minimal rent in exchange for occasional companionship and help with technology I still didn't fully trust. She was 26, brilliant, and reminded me of myself at that age, hungry, determined, unafraid. The forensic accountant had recovered most of the stolen funds. Victor had repaid the rest in a settlement agreement that kept everything out of criminal court. Leona's suggestion, not mine, but I'd agreed. He'd lost his job, his relationship with Diane, and most of his professional reputation. That felt like consequence enough. We didn't speak often. Once a month, maybe, brief phone calls that felt like strangers making polite conversation. Maybe someday that would change. Maybe it wouldn't. I'd made peace with both possibilities. The house was mine again, truly mine, in every legal sense. The accounts were in my name alone, the will was ironclad. And I'd started volunteering at the archives again, 2 days a week, teaching younger staff the art of preservation, of finding patterns in chaos. Maya emerged from the back door carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. The hydrangeas looked good. They needed attention. I'd been neglecting them. You're not neglecting anything anymore. I smiled, accepting the glass. We sat on the deck Richard had built 30 years ago, watching the afternoon light filter through the maple trees. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Still coming to the lake house this weekend?" I typed back, wouldn't miss it. This time I'd actually get on the plane. Maya glanced at me. You know what's wild? In all the legal paperwork, all the recordings, all the evidence, you never once raised your voice. You just built your case in silence. Silence isn't weakness, I said. Sometimes it's strategy. Your son learned that the hard way. He learned something. Whether it was the right lesson, time will tell. We sat in comfortable quiet, the kind that comes from companionship rather than isolation. Somewhere in the neighborhood, children were playing, their laughter carrying on the breeze. A dog barked. A car door slammed. Life continuing. Ordinary and precious and mine. I thought about the woman who'd overheard that conversation 6 months ago, who'd stood frozen in her own hallway while her son plotted to erase her. She felt like someone else now. Not because I'd changed, but because I'd remembered. Remembered the archivist who could catalogue chaos. Remembered the woman Richard had trusted with everything. Remembered Catherine Milbrook, who'd survived raising a child alone while her husband worked 60-hour weeks, who'd built a career in a male-dominated field, who'd outlived the man she loved and kept living anyway. That woman had always been here. She'd just been buried under grief and loneliness and the seductive comfort of letting someone else take control. Never again. Maya's phone chimed. She glanced at it and laughed. My mom wants to know if you're free for dinner Thursday. She's making that paella you loved. Tell her yes. She also says she has another case you might want to weigh in on. Another elder abuse situation similar to yours. Woman in West Seattle, son trying to force memory care placement. I considered that. The exhaustion of reliving it. The necessity of helping someone else avoid what I'd endured. Tell her I'll look at the files. Maya smiled. She figured you'd say that. As the sun dropped toward the Olympics, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I finished my lemonade and stood. The garden needed weeding. The guest house shutters needed painting. My life needed living. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready for all of it. Not because I'd won some grand victory. Not because my son had seen the error of his ways and begged forgiveness. Not because everything had been neatly resolved. But because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. The person I needed to trust most was myself. Everything else was just documentation. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt dismissed, overlooked, or underestimated because of your age, gender, or circumstance, know that your voice matters, your autonomy matters, your clarity even in the quietest moments matters. Share this
It's been so
story if it
hard
moved
since he
you.
left. I
And
miss him every
remember,
day, and the
silence
memories
isn't
just keep
always
flooding me
surrender.
back.
Sometimes it's the sound of someone gathering their strength,